Want to. One day when you're old, you'll stretch out your hands just like I did, and folks will lead you where you don't want to go. Just follow me. Said those words to me right here on this beach, right after I'd muddled up again, right after the fact that he had stretched out his hands and died. His hands were pretty rough. I remember the first time I shook them. See, he had worked with the wood for over 30 years with his daddy, about as long as I've been doing this, I guess. I'm a Texas boy, born and bred, which means two things. We're loud and we're proud. We ain't so much known for being smart as much as we are for being loyal. I've been a shrimper here off of Galveston Bay all my life, just like my daddy was before me and my daddy's daddy before that, and I figured that's all I'd ever do. I mean, I know the water here better than I know the land. But I gave up shrimping after I caught the biggest catch of my whole life, thanks to Jesus. I remember that day. Couldn't believe it. So I shook his hand and said, "You're my man." He slapped me on my back and said, "You're mine." And that's where the trouble started, because I couldn't ever get that one straight. Like this one day, me and the boys, we were in the boat and we were heading across the bay, and our lives have been changed quite a bit by the preaching and teaching and all of Jesus, but we had left him behind and we were going across the bay, and we've been fighting this huge thunderstorm and headwind, all night long. And then we're about ready to give up, and we see this yellow spirit thing floating across the water towards us, and we're about ready to jump ship until we figure out it's Jesus out there in a yellow rain slicker. Calls out, "Hey Pete, how about showing me some courage?" Well, that about gave us all a group heart attack, and I've never been one to mince my words, so I stood up and told him so. "Jesus, you think you're so high and mighty? I'd have just come on out there and get you." He just stops right there and looks at me. "Come on, Pete." Oh man, what am I going to do now? All the boys are looking at me to see if my money's going to go where my mouth just went. So I locked my eyes on him and I hit the water running. And I don't know if it's courage or stupidity, but there I was doing it, windsurfing without a board. Then a strange thought occurred to me. I can't do this. I can't swim. And sure enough, I'm up to my neck in it crying, "My God, save me." And of course, he did. As I sat there on the deck, wrapping blankets around me, he just looked down there and smiled. "Well, Pete, you're all wet. Why such little faith?" "Because I can swim about as good as a rock can float, that's why." Jesus just took off his rain slicker and set it aside. He looked out at the wind and the waves, and everything went calm and quiet. It was eerie the way he could do that. Look out at the storm and everything would go silent. It's like he didn't want me to miss a word he's going to say to me. So he looks at me down there, teeth chattering away. He says, "Don't think about what you can't do. Only think about what you can do. Don't ever doubt me, Pete. I'll always be there for you." Well, I do have to admit that the incident changed my attitude towards the man a bit after I swallowed my pride and ate a few of my own words. See, because I began to realize he really was high and mighty. He even went so far one time as to ask us who we thought he was. Well, some of the boys were stammering about people calling him a psychic, a prophet, a madman. But that's not what he asked us. He wanted us to stand up and be counted. Couldn't believe it. We're all looking at anywhere but at him. Johnny's staring at his hat like he'd never seen it before. Jimmy's kicking the dirt around with his shoes, and old Judd just starts jingling the change in his pocket. Nervous habit he had. I couldn't believe it. We were all a bunch of little-livered chickens. Well, I'd never been one to fear the sound of my own voice. So I stood up, looked Jesus in the eye, said, "Well, you're the Christ, Son of the living God." He looked at me all proud-like and said, "Well, God bless you, Pete. There ain't no way you could have come up with that on your own. You got holy inside." Well, if there was ever time for a rooster to crow, this was it. I was feeling good. And Jesus went on talking about some crazy plan of his, going down to Corpus Christi and dying. I don't know. And since I'd just been told I had holy insight, I thought I'd pull him aside and give him some more. Oh, Jesus, stop all this foolishness. You ain't ever going to die. And before I can take another breath, he steps away from me and says, "Get away from me, Satan. Now you're talking like a rock in my way, a boulder crack my shins on. Think for yourself again. That always gets you in trouble." Now, I got skin as thick as an armadillo, but I don't need to tell you, that pretty much took the wind out of my sails, and I shut up. But not for long. A couple weeks later, we were all sitting down for supper at Corpus Christi, and Jesus starts passing the bread and the cup around just like he always does. And this time he says, "This bust of bread is my body, and this wine is my blood. And as often as y'all eat or drink of it, I want you to think about me and what I'm about to do for you." Well, that curbed our appetites a bit. We could all tell his heart was real heavy. And I may be thick-headed, but I knew what Corpus Christi meant, so I stood up again. "Oh, Jesus, there is no way this is going to be our last supper together." Without even looking at me, he says, "Oh, Peter, I wish it weren't so, but before the sun rises over the gulf, you're going to disown me, not once, but 3 times. Never mind, Lord, I would die for you." He slowly raised his head and he looked at me. He said, oh, Peter, your words are true, then you know. Lucifer wants to pour you like water through a fishing net, but I've been praying for you, Pete, that even when your actions fail, your faith will stay strong. And after you make your way on back to me, I need you to be strong for the boys. Those words, they cut me to the bone. And all I can remember is just trying to breathe in that dead silence, my chest so tight. Well, Rangers came to take him away. We all ran like jackrabbits. Not one of us stood by him. I mean, I hung around the jail cell a little while till the jailer come up and asked me if I knew who the prisoner was. I said, no, I don't think I do. On my way out, I ran into the deputy sheriff who asked me what I was doing there. And I said, well, I thought I knew one of the fellows inside, but I don't. By this time, I am running for the bay, and somebody shouts out, hey, Pete, they got your God all locked up. Well, I raised my hands in the air and shouted clear across the whole Gulf of Mexico, I do not know him. And I opened my eyes. See the sunrise right my denial across the sky in blazing scarlet. With it, my chest burst open, leaving an empty hole where my heart used to be. See, I thought I knew my own heart. I thought I was a man of action, but when it came right down to it, I had feet of clay. All my hope had died with him. So I went back to the only thing I knew how. Spent my days throwing out the nets, knowing I'd never catch what I'd lost. But then one day, just before sunrise, I heard a voice calling out from the shore. Hey Pete, how about showing me some courage? Now I don't know if I swam, crawled, or walked on water, but I got to him and fell at his knees. Jesus just looked down there and laughed again. Huh, Pete, you're all wet? Come on now, I got a fish fry going for you and the boys on the shore. Well, I was finally right about one thing. Corpus Christi was not our last meal together. But somehow I knew this one was. And after we'd all had our fill, Jesus took me for a walk along the shore. This shore. He turned to me and said, "Pete, I gotta know something. Do you love me?" "Oh, Jesus, I didn't mean to turn my back on you, Pete. Pete, I gotta know. Do you love me?" "Jesus, I'm a stupid fisherman. I got a big mouth." "And Pete, I gotta know. Do you love me?" Those words broke my heart. "Oh, Jesus, you know I do." I fell to my knees and I clung to him like the drowning man that I was. And after a minute, he picked me up. He says, "Oh, Pete, I love you too. And I want you to have a heart for me as big as all of Texas, because don't you see? We got bigger fish to fry now. You're young now. Go wherever you want to, but one day when you're old, you stretch your hands out just like I did, and folks will lead you where you don't want to go. So follow me." And it finally sunk in. For once in my life, I didn't speak out of turn, because I realized that no matter if I failed him time and time again, I was redeemed, and it finally got through this thick head of mine that he's faithful even when I ain't. Me? I consider it an honor to die for my God. Because I got a heart for him as big as all of Texas. Yeah, my hands are still rough. I don't suppose I'll ever get the smell of fish from under my nails. But that's okay. Because it does me good to remember what I've been delivered from.